Yeah. So that's better. Sorry, man.
Well, as long as you moved all the way back here today, would you lend me a piece of paper and I'll give it back to you after the meeting?
Do it, Tom.
Will it have good notes on it at least?
It might, or it might be an airplane.
Team communities on there. Sorry?
You're the one you want recording.
Yep.
Any updates or more shaking with your first year?
Yes. And that communication again.
You made it.
It's 9 o'clock. We'll get started with our Zoom call. I see CYANH2 is on. Maybe just some, to say what's there today is just an informational meeting. Our sheriff's department called, wanted to have maybe some discussion on the impacts this plant might bring to the community. There's going to be positive impacts and negative impacts, and we want to manage the negative ones, and hopefully the positive ones will outnumber the negative. This plant is proposed to be built. It would be east of Lanark, south of Highway 2, and just west of the road 1013. That's the highway or the county road that we had some deaths on. We just put arms on the railroad tracks to make it a safer railroad crossing. So that's the location of this plant. They have purchased that 400 plus acres there, and that's kind of the area that we're talking about. I know CYAN has told me a couple of times they're working on engineering on the project right now, and so there's still a lot of questions up in the air, but this might be a good introduction meeting. We can get maybe some information out on the plant and how it's gonna affect the communities positively and negatively, and questions might be asked. If you don't have the answers for them, the plant or the company said they'll get back to us, and maybe we'll have to have a follow-up Zoom in a month or two, or however it works out here after we're done. Everybody on Zoom has been muted. If you have a question, once we get going, raise your hand and we will call on you and unmute you, and then you can speak. That way people aren't talking over each other. So I guess I'll let the CYANH2 team take it over and give us a little introduction to the company and give us some information. You have to unmute yourself. Can you unmute him, Sam?
Yeah.
All right, there you go.
All right. Hey, thanks, Gordon, and thanks, everyone. Would it be okay to show a slide deck presentation of the project just to kind of give people a sense of what it is and what's going on? Some of the slides we'll have to move past pretty quickly because some of it's proprietary.
Yeah, that's fine. Why don't you introduce yourself first, then we'll get you so you can share.
These guys good with their chairs back here.
Yeah, you guys can come back. Grab your chairs. Go ahead and introduce yourself, then we'll share your screen.
Yeah, so we have John Muse and Ray Johnson online from CYAN. And so we've been a Montana-based LLC, small business, since 2020, and we've mainly been looking at Eastern Montana and Western North Dakota for low carbon, high volume, low cost hydrogen production opportunities. It's our assessment that that area is very conducive towards fertilizer production with a hydrogen input. And so that's kind of the genesis of all of this. We've been at it for quite a while, and I think the presentation will kind of show you what where we're at. And again, some of the slides I'll be going over pretty quickly because I didn't have time to um, create a sanitized copy. So some of this has proprietary information, but that's okay. So if you allow me to share my screen, I could start. All right.
There you go.
Can you see
You're good.
this? Okay, great. So, we're talking, this is, so our group is CYANH, but we have a large consortium, and this is the Eastern Montana Fertilizer Company. And just to put this in context, a lot of the fertilizer that comes into Montana, into the United States, comes from places like Belarus, Russia, China, the Middle East, and we believe that we have a way to make our product cost competitive, but manufacture it in the United States, in Montana. So that's kind of one of the national security reasons um, behind this plant. And both U.S. Senator Daines and U.S. Senator Tester, in their letters of support, specifically mentioned the national security benefits of this project. So these are the principles. There's 5 of us. We have a number of advisors, but these are the principles of CYANH2. Um, 4 of the 5 of us are military veterans and service academy graduates, 2 West Point and 2 Annapolis graduates, and a Montana State University engineering graduate, and so on and so forth. So this is the consortium of companies and entities, including Montana-based companies and entities that are assisting with the project directly. And just talking about the Montana companies, West Tech is helping us do the environmental checks. Their assessment to date has been that this is a very clean operation and clean site, and no issues identified so far. Also, Ameritrac has a footprint in Montana. This is a Warren Buffett, Berkshire Hathaway company. Also, Cushing Terrell is one of the largest engineering firms in Montana, based in Billings. They have been helping us significantly. Also, Bridger Photonics is a company in Bozeman that has been helping us significantly. And of course, Sheridan Electric, Upper Missouri Power Cooperative, and even Basin over in North Dakota have been very helpful and are assisting with various aspects of the project. So there's a jobs creation story here, in that we've had a number of plant closures, whether it be Sydney Sugars, Lewis and Clark Power Plant down in Sydney, even farther south, units 1 and 2 on Colstrip, Savage Mine in Savage. So because of the job creation potential of the project, we'd be able to hire pretty much almost everybody who has been laid off from those types of jobs, or who is underemployed at the moment. So this is also going to benefit tribal nations as well. Culbertson, Lanark, Painesville, all pretty close to Fort Peck Indian Reservation. And we've had a considerable amount of support. The Wolf Point City Council just wrote a strong letter of support for the project, which we appreciated. And we'll try to include veterans through both the IBEW, AFL-CIO, different labor unions, different trade unions, as well as some of the recruiters that are going to be recruiting people to assist. The vast majority of people, as it always turns out, won't be veterans, but we'll try to include and reach out to veterans as much as possible. So we're going to be producing urea fertilizer, which is the world's most common fertilizer. So this is something that has been done all around the world, including in the United States, safely, without issue for generations. So the idea here, again, is to reduce our the imports of nitrogen fertilizer, and as you see, a lot of it comes from the Middle East, from Russia, from others. So and we're going to be employing some new technologies that make the emissions from the plant significantly less, and not just less by a little bit, but less by greater than 90%. And then, as we all saw during COVID, a lot of our farmers in Montana and throughout the country were paying sometimes $1,000 per ton of urea fertilizer. And in this case, because we have a long-term contract for natural gas at a fixed price, if there ever is a huge spike, people should be able to get access to fertilizer at an affordable level. So there's a number of things. On the 25th of January, a large fertilizer buyer committed to off-taking 100% of our plant's output. And then when that happened, we also attracted a number of private equity firms that wanted to provide private capital to the project, contingent on a Department of Energy loan. So lots of project achievements. Won't go through them all, but we're making good progress all around. There's different special project features. Some of these things haven't been done before. We'll be commingling green and blue hydrogen. Go ahead. Was there a question?
Oh, you're all right. Go ahead. Keep on going.
Okay. A unique mass balance. We're actually going to be implementing a large fuel cell park. And as is currently designed, this fuel cell park would be the largest fuel cell park in North America. It would provide 100% of the power of the plant. And, there are various advantages for this area that we like. Once again, back to the value proposition of the project, there's a strong national security benefit here, because we'll be able to reduce fertilizer imports from non-allies. A strong community benefits contribution due to the jobs creation and the fact that a number of plants in the area have closed. And then there's an innovation value. Just to give you kind of a sense of the innovation value, we just got back from Brazil last week. We went to Sao Paulo, the business center of Brazil, and the largest company in Brazil, Petrobras, wants to talk to us about applying the design for this plant in Montana to several of its plants in Brazil in order to lower the carbon footprint, but also they're in the same situation as we are. Brazil is a big ag country, and they actually want to wean themselves off of Middle Eastern and other type and Chinese fertilizer. So we've managed to secure letters of support from both U.S. senators and from Governor Gianforte. You know, from the public service commissioner over this district, as well as the Wolf Point City Council, also from Gordon. We appreciate that. The Montana State Conference of Electrical Workers supplied a letter of support. Montana AFL-CIO did as well. The president of the Montana AFL-CIO actually flew to a Department of Energy conference in California to talk to senior members and advocate for our project, as well as Montana Farmers Union supplied a letter of support. And then there are a bunch of critical documents, you know, everything from the site to aid to construction and so on and so forth. We're working through different pipeline easements at the moment. We have all sorts of different agreements with engineering firms there's going to be a solar farm associated with this, a fuel cell plant, of course, a rail loop because we need to load granular fertilizer onto rail and truck, and then civil and battery energy storage system. So we've been, you know, presenting on this project to a number of governing bodies, including the Montana Public Service Commission, different conferences. This is us evaluating a large fuel cell park in Connecticut. Something like this would actually be at the site near Lanark, except it would be about twice as big. We also do technical feasibility studies, and one of our technical feasibility studies contributed to Southeastern Montana Development Corporation winning the 2023 Montana META Impact Award for Best Study. And we talked to a bunch of different, you know, fertilizer companies from Nutrient, EF to CHS, etc. We were actually invited back to Dubai for the COP28 United Nations summit, and we were there for the agriculture period of the session to talk about lower carbon fertilizer. This is a picture of us at a Department of Energy conference. That's the Secretary of Energy right there. So I won't get too into the design, but basically this is our process flow diagram. In between each is a letter that represents the throughput, whether it be power, whether it be mass, whether it be energy, and that's reflected here on the far left, A through AJ. That corresponds to all of those interface letters. And then you've got megawatts, metric tons, MMBTUs energy. And then down below is also the way we view storing energy. And then it just talks about basically how we are reducing emissions in this plant. And we're doing this through both centralized, which is central carbon capture, and point source carbon capture, which is the molten carbonate fuel cells. And, you know, this is a very different type of urea plant. much more environmentally, um, um, you know, I guess attuned or whatnot. And but this kind of tells a story here. I won't get too much into it. There are two patent pending innovations behind this. One is a low carbon urea fertilizer plant design. That application's been submitted to the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office, as well as a hydrogen bridge, which has also been submitted to the USPTO. And there's a lot of places in the Western United States that, they don't have good water. But this is a spot in Montana where we think, in the Western US that is very solid. So this is the picture of the ground, with, highway running between it, rail running between it. So both sides would be, part of the plant. This is a layout right here. So right here is the main sort of guts of the system: reformer, carbon capture, moving on here to urea melt, granulation, urea storage, fuel cell park, substation. And then around here, even though this is being changed, we just got word that the rail loop will be slightly modified. But this is a rail loop, so the plant will be inside the rail loop, and um, right here, this will be the between Cushing Terrell and Ameritrac. Well, we would like to do an underpass right here. So this would be the main ingress, egress. There would also be additional ingress, egress over here for safety reasons. And then over here, this shows the water pipeline, the natural gas pipeline, and an additional 115 kV transmission line that goes over to, I believe, Red Bank substation. Well, so there's also a solar farm associated with this, and this kind of breaks down areas that we're looking at. We haven't definitively decided what acreage we'll be using for that solar farm, but we're discussing with several different folks. I won't get into this. So there's a number of permits, and a lot of this will come after the financing and after the construction is started. But there's, sorry. But there's basically 7 big ones. The nationwide permit right here in this surface water individual permit, these are the longest lead times of the 7. So we'd like to get started on those ASAP. And we've been talking to, different Montana state entities to help us with the permitting process, of course, DEQ. And then each one of those 7 is broken down into different facets. So, we're doing our best to make sure that we're addressing all the regulatory and permitting requirements. So this is a project timeline right here. And so we're right here in the April timeframe. We hope, so the FEED stands for front end engineering design, and that is the prerequisite to qualify fully for the Department of Energy loan. So we are trying to get that feed done here sometime in August. It, to be honest with you, it might go into October just because some of these big companies take a while to deliver their products. And then when that happens, the DOE will review part of the Part 2 application, that feed. Then it will go into due diligence, and then it will be most likely approved, since we've already been told by the director of the DOE Loan Programs Office that our project fully qualifies. And then we will have a multi-year construction period, represented here by orange and a little bit of this gap analysis up front, followed by commissioning of the plant, testing, making sure everything is good, followed by full operations mid-2028. So this breaks down our front-end engineering design a little bit more into different categories. And as you see, we're probably about 51% or so as of the 28th of March. So we're probably getting around 55% complete. And we're trying to get it done here, but if not here, whenever we get it done, we'll get it done. And so that's that. I hope that gives everyone at least kind of an overview of what's going on.
Yeah, thank you very much. That was very, very interesting. You had mentioned those 3 plants in Sydney area that closed, and that's about 300 workers that were laid off, if I remember, in that area. So that's, you got people that were laid off, or maybe they have jobs now they could get better jobs at a place like this. It's all, everybody says 200 workers is what you mentioned once. Where are you going to find all the workers? Well, 300 of them got laid off in the Sydney area last year. So I think this is all, it's doable by getting workers, and there'll be good jobs, new plant, new facility. So that's exciting. What questions do we have we'll start with the group in the commissioner's office here. So we have law enforcement here, and there's some extra law enforcement from Bozeman? No, state. The state. Okay, James, our editor from the paper, what's your question?
Hi there. Our residential housing market in that area is pretty tight. Do you have any housing plans, ideas? Because we're also on the edge of the Bakken, which means we've seen a lot of man camps, that kind of thing over the years. So I'm wondering what your plan is for developing housing for this workforce.
Yeah. So, as I was mentioning to Gordon a while back, a lot of these, because we're focusing so much on engineering right now and financing, there's a lot of things that we don't have specific answers to. So we were really hoping to use this session to sort of make a list of these types of questions and then reach out to experts, people who know specifically about that type of stuff. We're more on the engineering side of the house, and but for instance, the engineering, procurement, and construction company, the various major unions that will be bringing in people, those are the people right off the top that we were thinking that we would reach out to about certain things like that. So yeah, if you don't mind, I mean, the questions are great. We'd like to make a list of the questions and then get those lookups back to you when we can.
Yeah, I mean, say in the future, I mean, that will be future discussions, like the town of Culbertson has 300 units of sewer available. So there's expansion spots available for different things. Williston has a lot of new apartments growing up. They're kind of getting caught up. So being in the Williston Basin, could help since we've already went through this 10 years ago with this growth. And the county does have man camp rules and all that, so there's a lot of stuff that's already in place to help. So it doesn't, go negative. There's one question online, which is a local resident that's around that plant. It says, what ammonia risks are there with a plant like this? Because they live downwind.
Sure. So, I mean, ammonia, there's like thousands of pipelines, thousands of miles of pipeline in the United States, thousands of ammonia plants in the United States. And we are just going to approach it with the strictest, most vigilant safety mechanisms possible and out there. And we're not going to be just doing the minimum. And so from our standpoint, it's negligible risk because of that, but we're not going to assume that we'll continue to be super vigilant about that.
Because I know somebody on your team has mentioned once that this plant won't look like the normal plant that we saw 30 years ago built or 20 years ago built. It'll be totally different type of construction and techniques.
Sure. So, you folks saw the layout we had. So, I mean that southern piece is only about 220 acres, and you saw that the plant is actually taking up a very small part of that 220 acres. So it's actually a pretty small footprint all in all. The other thing is the granulation and melt plants, because of the sensitivity of urea fertilizer to temperature and humidity, especially if we have polar vortexes and that sort of thing in northeastern Montana. The initial plan is to encapsulate that urea train in a climate controlled shell. So for instance, so that actually won't even look like a plant. It will look like just a square building, a modern square building. And then you saw, as far as the footprint of the ammonia plant that you saw, in additional discussions with KBR, who's the world's, oh, and one thing I should have mentioned on the previous question, the OEMs, or the original equipment manufacturers who are doing this project, KBR is the world's leader in ammonia. I think they have over half the world's market in ammonia and do almost all of the US facilities. And they're just known for being very, very careful and exacting. On the urea side, we're also using the world's largest company for urea that has the most market share. I think they've got almost half of the world's market share in terms of urea plants. So these are like truly world-class companies that we have brought into the consortium. And then right now, the EPC, or engineering procurement construction company, that is most likely going to do the project is Worley, which is considered one of the top 3 or 4 EPCs in the world, and has done many, many different projects in the United States and elsewhere. So the companies that are a part of this are publicly traded and just some of the absolute best out there. Yeah.
Any other questions in the room?
I have a question.
Yep, Tom.
Hi, my name is Thomas Blanker. I'm Deputy County Attorney here, and from a law enforcement perspective, just kind of curious, you mentioned construction from 2025 going on to 28. I know this is kind of a thing down the road, but how is it broken up in phases? I mean, how many workers can we expect coming into a county at law enforcement needs to contend with, just so we can have a forward-looking vision of what to expect?
Yeah, no, great question, Tom. And again, let me make a list of that. I know that the EPC is working on a plan. It's it's called like a modularization of capital equipment plan, but basically trying to deconflict the delivery and installation of all the respective capital equipment. And that is really going to drive workforce as well. I don't want to say that plan is going to be due anytime soon, but I know that they are working on it. And then when that gets pinned down, we probably should have a good feel for sort of like the flux of workers. And really this project is sort of like multiple projects in one. So you will have sort of like your reformer train. That's a project in itself. You will have your urea train. That's a project in itself. You will have a fuel cell park. That's a project in itself. You will have the solar farm. That's a project in itself. And then all sorts of different auxiliary systems as well. Last will be the installation of the rail loop. That will be one of the very last things. And then along with that will be the installation of the storage units and the loading infrastructure to put fertilizer into trucks and rail cars. But I've got that question written down, and we'll get an answer to you and when we get some info back.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
This is Teresa DeConza, Roosevelt County Attorney. Just to follow up on that, when you're getting those numbers together and they're working on that, are you guys open, or would they be open to bringing in the sheriff and our office and having those discussions more intimately, so we are not having to like come back and have a meeting down the way and have a whole bunch of open? We'd like to be part of that process in discussing the impacts and the influx of numbers, to what it's going to mean for our law enforcement, what it's going to mean for my office and Tom and us in prosecuting any issues that go on, and would like to be part of that process going forward. Are you open to that?
Absolutely. No, I mean, we would welcome that. So no, that's great to hear from our end.
My name is Dean Mallum. I'm on the Bull Point City Council. And as a retired firefighter, will there be any internal fire protection? And that would also kind of segue into the ammonia question, because obviously if there is a problem with that, local rural fire departments are going to be the first responders that are going to apply to that. Would you folks be willing or available to, say, provide specialized training to those folks to handle that kind of a problem? Number one. My second question would be, on the law enforcement side of the house, will there, or is there a plan to have any internal security both during construction and during production once your plant is up and running? I know that's going to be a huge question to particularly people that live in that area. We went through all of the, the question period when the Bakken was running, and how construction people were going to be vetted. All those questions became very serious to folks that lived in the area. And if they're on your side, I would think that this becomes an easier problem to get done.
Yeah, no, great question. So, the first one, training up folks, absolutely. And just to take a step back, one of the prerequisites to having our DOE loan approved is a comprehensive community benefits package. So showing how not only how this is going to benefit in terms of jobs, but how every single aspect, whether it be security, safety, all of these types of things are being addressed. And so the more feedback we get from you folks, that strengthens that community benefits package and increases the probability of loan approval. So so yes, the short answer is absolutely. In fact, workforce development is a key piece of this, because a lot of the technologies are not super common. We've been talking to different entities, from Montana State University to, different community colleges about creating different workforce development opportunities. And that could range from, maintenance to engineering to administration to what you're talking about in terms of like fire and all of these types of things. So how exactly that's constructed, I have no idea, but that is definitely something that is a key piece of this community benefits package. Regarding the security, the security for this plant has got to be world class, and because of the ammonia footprint and these types of things. So yes, I mean that's going to be fundamental to having a operationally viable and safe plant.
Just one follow-up thought to that. Again, during the construction phase, if there was private security involved, I know that became we travel 150 miles east of us when the Keystone was all going, that became part of that problem, or allegedly part of that problem with some of the private security that was involved. This is just a personal suggestion, but if it comes to that point, then some very good conversations be had with Sheriff Fredericks and with the county attorney's office as far as perhaps vetting those a little bit. Again, just to alleviate problems.
Yeah. No, that's all good feedback. Appreciate it.
If you have a question online, just raise your hand, please, and then we'll get you on, or you can put it in the chat. Is there any other questions in the room? Yep.
You mind making your slides and materials available? I'm sure you already have for commissioners, but are they available in some way?
Right now we are not sending it out again, like several
What about the site maps?
What's that?
What about the site maps? The site maps, site location. That's what I'm really interested in actually.
Yeah, and right now, when we finish the engineering, we'll make certain materials available, but there's a lot of iteration right now. So for instance, there's a group that wants the offloading to be on the west side of the rail, and another that wants it to be on the east side of the rail. So, like we're really focused on getting the engineering completely squared away. And then when
on locating the site for the community to be aware of exactly where it's at. So maybe you can provide me a basic site map of some kind. Some kind of basic location description site map that is a little bit more specific than referring to what I saw on Zoom.
Yeah. Yeah. And also for context, I mean, I want to like let you folks know that this is not 100% deal as well, right? So the DOE loan needs to get approved, and the private equity that's been committed is all contingent on the DOE loan. So, if that doesn't happen, then that's why we're really focused on the engineering and the financing. And we're as we're getting easements addressed and identifying ground for the solar farm and things like that. Once all of that gets finished, we'd be more than happy to provide a site map. but really don't want to, in fact, when the articles came out about the project, you know, we, we, we really weren't super happy about that because again, we don't want to build up expectations beyond what is actually going to happen. At the end of the day,
Managing, pardon me, I understand that you're managing expectations, but speaking of a little irritated, the town councils, the mayor of Bainville and Culberson were pretty irritated that they had no idea about this. And the community is not really clear about it either. You said that you purchased the site, right? So can I have some kind of details about that? Not just sort of between Bainville and Culberson.
yeah, I don't see why not. I mean, but what I'm trying to tell you is that the plant isn't just on that site.
I understand that part, yeah.
Right. I mean, like the solar array could be on various parts. So do you want to know where like everything is, or do you want to just kind of know where?
I
Like,
get that a lot of it is in flux. I'm just, any concrete descriptive information that you can share with me would be useful. Yeah, maybe after the meeting, by email, something like this.
Okay, and sorry, who am I sending this to?
Northern Plains Independent, with a legal newspaper for Roosevelt County.
Well,
Plains
I'll email you his addresses for emails. I'll get it to you.
Okay.
And then on our chat line, the DES coordinator said she'd like to be involved in a lot of these meetings. And then EMS for the various hospitals, you know, they want to be informed as much as possible as time goes on here. We'll pick those. And DES, I mean, you'd have to have the emergency site plans and all that, which that'll all come in the future. But just everybody's kind of concerned and wants to be involved and get information as it becomes available.
Okay. No, makes sense.
Any other questions? You don't see any, you see any online plans? Okay, I think it's been very informative. It's kind of exciting, and then there's still going to be a lot of challenges. I'd like to maybe in another couple months, we'll do this again, and maybe we'll have a few more answers, and we can just keep the lines of communication open. And if there's more concerns, questions, we'll have them then. Other than that,
Yeah.
we appreciate the information and everybody that was online with the Zoom. I hope it was beneficial, and we'll schedule something in the future.
I have one
question here in mind.
Yep. Well, what I was wondering, with everybody wanting information, if the county could have one contact person with your company, like the county commissioner, Gordon Oker's here, if there's a question, we could funnel it through Gordon here, so that people aren't all running all over the county wondering who to talk to. If we could coordinate everything through Gordon.
Yeah,
that's fine.
That's fine.
No, that would be fantastic. And you know, I mean, if we've heard from a lot of folks from the community that they're excited about this, they're excited about the fact that we're going to be going the extra mile to make it, you know, truly beneficial to the community. And then, you know, like our biggest challenge right now is to make sure that the loan at DOE gets approved. And just because of the way the whole political system is set up at the moment, the key person for that is U.S. Senator Tester. This project really will fly or not fly because of him, because of the DOE loan. And so, you know, if it happens, it may be because of him, and if it doesn't happen, it's probably because of him. And so that's really where we're at. He has written a strong letter of support for the project, as have U.S. Senator Daines and Governor Gianforte. But just based on the current administration and who has the influence in this administration, it's Senator Tester. And if he wants this project to happen, it happens. And if he doesn't, despite the letter of support, then it doesn't. So that's the real calculus here. And, you know, would certainly like to have a follow-up when we get some more answers to all of these questions, and that would be really good. You know, as far as kind of a milestone for that, I would say that when we have finished the front end engineering design and are in the part two portion of the Department of Energy process, that means that we are on a fast track, and that all of these types of questions are going to be extremely relevant because the project's probably going to happen. Right now, until we get to that point, you know, not really sure. So, but we're moving forward, and but that's the status. Just to level with everyone.
One more comment.
Yeah, one more question.
Quick comment again, email, city council here. Again, and I know folks have thought about this, but I would, again, certainly encourage you to keep the elected officials, the commissioners, the city councils, and definitely which I know you have talked with, because I've had conversations with some of the Fort Peck Tribal Council. That's a lot of political clout when you're talking about those elected officials. We know it's an election year. You know, that support could be very beneficial to your efforts.
No, really appreciate that. No, thank you. And yeah, and sorry, who was that was saying that?
Email on the 4 Point City Council.
Okay, all right, fantastic.
And Commissioner candidate.
Thank you, Gordon.
Any other questions? Okay, well, we appreciate you guys' input and the discussion today. We'll get in touch and we'll do this again.
Yeah, really appreciate it. Great questions. Thank you, folks.
Thank you.
Thank you.